There is a house in England that refuses to stop being haunted. 30 East Drive in Pontefract, West Yorkshire. A simple, semi-detached council house on the Chesterfield estate, built after World War II. Brick exterior, small front garden, nothing special about it. Thousands of houses just like it across Britain. But this house is different. This house has been called the most haunted house in Britain. And unlike other ghost stories, this one never ended. The haunting began in 1966. It continued for years. Then it stopped. Then it came back. And it is still happening today. The entity that haunts this house is not like other ghosts. It does not just make noises. It does not just move objects. It attacks. It leaves bruises. It drags people. It shows itself. And when you see it, you understand why they call it the Black Monk. This is not a story about a friendly spirit. This is not a story about bumps in the night. This is a story about a family trapped in their own home with something that wanted to hurt them, something that fed on their fear, something that may have been waiting there long before the house was ever built. The Pritchard family moved into 30 East Drive in August 1966. Joe and Jean Pritchard, their 15-year-old son Philip, their 12-year-old daughter Diane, a normal working-class family. Joe was a laborer. Jean was a housewife. They were proud to have this house. Council housing in good condition. A fresh start for the family. Philip had been away on holiday with his grandmother Sarah Scholes when the family first moved in. On the August bank holiday weekend, while Jean and Joe were still away visiting relatives, Philip returned home with his grandmother. It was a hot summer day, but inside the house, the air felt strangely cold. Philip walked into the living room and stopped dead. His grandmother came in behind him. They both saw it at the same time. A fine white powder falling from chest height, not from the ceiling, from midair, falling slowly like snow, covering the floor, covering the furniture. They had no explanation for it. Sarah called Philip's Aunt Marie, who lived across the street. Marie came over to look. She agreed it was strange. She went into the kitchen to get a rag to clean it up. And that is when she slipped. There was a puddle of water on the kitchen floor. A puddle that had not been there a moment before. Neat, perfectly round, no splashes, as if someone had poured it carefully. More puddles appeared, on the floor, on the counters, perfectly shaped, peering out of nowhere. Then objects started moving. A heavy chest of drawers began swaying on its own, rocking back and forth. Sarah and Philip were terrified. They ran out of the house. They spent the night at a neighbor's house. They did not go back inside until Joe and Jean returned. When the family came home, they found the house quiet. The puddles had dried. The powder was swept up. Everything seemed normal. They thought it was over. They were wrong. It had only just begun. For 2 years, the house was quiet. The Pritchard family lived normal lives. They almost forgot about that strange weekend in August 1966. Then in 1968, it started again. But this time it was worse, much worse. It began with sounds, loud banging at night, footsteps on the stairs when no one was there, tapping on the walls, scratching inside the rooms. Then the objects started moving again. Ornaments would disappear from one room and appear in another. Cups of tea would vanish from the table. Flower pots would fly across rooms. Small stones rained down on the kitchen roof. Pebbles appeared out of nowhere and clattered to the floor. One day, Jean Pritchard was cleaning out the kitchen fireplace when a shower of old keys fell down the chimney. Some hit her on the head. When she gathered them up, she found every key in the house. But there were also other keys, very old keys, keys that no one had ever seen before, keys that did not fit any lock in the house. The family tried to ignore it. They gave the presence a friendly name, Fred, as if calling it Fred would make it less frightening, as if pretending it was harmless would protect them. But Fred was not friendly, and Fred was not harmless. Furniture began to move on its own. Heavy cabinets would slide across floors without leaving scratch marks. Pictures fell off walls. Plates and cups smashed. A crack appeared in the bedroom ceiling and grew larger each day. The family called in a priest. The priest blessed the house with holy water. He prayed in every room. The activity only got worse. They called in more priests. They tried exorcisms. Nothing worked. If anything, the rituals seemed to anger whatever was in the house. The violence increased, and it began to focus on one person, 12-year-old Diane. Diane bore the worst of the attacks. She was slapped by invisible hands, scratched, her hair was pulled, objects flew at her. Cold spots followed her through the house. She felt hands grabbing at her clothes, pushing her, touching her. Then came the worst incident. Multiple family members and neighbors were present. They were all together in the house when it happened. Diane was near the bottom of the stairs. Suddenly she screamed. Her hair was being pulled upward, lifted by something they could not see. She was dragged, inch by inch, up the stairs, screaming, clawing at the carpet, trying to grab onto anything. Joe and Jean tried to pull her back. They could not. Something was stronger than them. Something was holding their daughter. They watched helplessly as Diane was dragged all the way to the top of the stairs. When they finally reached her, she was sobbing, limp, exhausted, and on her neck were bruises, finger-shaped bruises, as if someone had grabbed her throat. But there was no one there. No one visible. That was when people started seeing it. The figure. Witnesses began reporting a tall, dark shape, robed in black, like a monk's habit, with a hood covering its face, or where its face should have been. Because when people looked closely, they saw nothing. No face, just shadow, just darkness. Jean Pritchard saw it multiple times. Once she was standing at the kitchen sink peeling potatoes. She turned around. The figure was standing right behind her, tall, silent, watching. She stared at it. It stared back. Then it vanished, simply disappeared. Neighbors saw it too. Mrs. Mountain, who lived next door, saw the figure in her own kitchen. Other residents of the estate reported seeing a black-robed shape walking near 30 East Drive. Always at dusk, always silent, always watching. The apparition became so well known that the local newspapers began reporting on it. They called it Mr. Nobody at first. Then someone made the connection. Pontefract had a dark history, and that history might explain what was haunting the Pritchard family. A young historian named Tom Cunliffe became interested in the case. He started researching the history of the land where 30 East Drive stood. What he discovered was chilling. Pontefract is a medieval town with a violent past. It was the site of Pontefract Castle, where King Richard II was murdered in 1399. The town had a Cluniac priory founded in 1090. Monks lived there for centuries until King Henry VIII dissolved the monasteries in 1540. But there was another piece of history, a darker piece. According to local legend, there had been a gallows on the site where the Checkerfield estate was later built. In the 16th century, a Cluniac monk from the nearby priory was accused of terrible crimes. He was charged with the assault and murder of a young girl. He was found guilty, and he was hanged on the gallows. His body was buried in an unmarked grave, somewhere beneath what would eventually become 30 East Drive. Some sources dispute whether this actually happened. There are no official records of this specific monk or this specific execution. But the legend persists, and the legend fits too well with what the Pritchard family experienced. A monk robed in black, a violent spirit, a focus on a young girl, Diane, who was the same age as the girl in the legend. The attacks, the rage, the refusal to leave. It all fit. The poltergeist became known as the Black Monk of Pontefract. And the name stuck. Whether the legend is true or not, something was in that house, something that many people saw, something that left physical evidence, something that terrorized a family for years. Word spread about the haunting at 30 East Drive. Journalists arrived. Police officers witnessed objects flying through the air. They could not explain it. Some ran out of the house in fear. The Yorkshire Evening Post reported on the case. The national newspapers picked up the story. The BBC came to investigate. Paranormal researchers arrived with equipment. They documented temperature drops, unexplained sounds, objects moving. Some claimed to capture electronic voice phenomena. Photographs were taken that showed strange anomalies. The evidence piled up. In 1981, paranormal author Colin Wilson published a book called Poltergeist, a study in destructive haunting. It featured the Black Monk case prominently. Wilson interviewed the Pritchard family. He spoke to neighbors. He examined the evidence. He concluded that this was one of the most well-documented and violent poltergeist cases in history. The activity at 30 East Drive continued until late 1969. By then, the family was exhausted, traumatized. Jean Pritchard finally had enough. Someone suggested placing garlic over the doorways, an old folk remedy against evil spirits. Jean tried it, and remarkably, the activity stopped. Fred went quiet. The Black Monk disappeared. The Pritchard family repaired the crack in the ceiling. They cut the grass. They tried to return to normal life. Philip and Diane grew up. They moved away. Joe and Jean stayed in the house for many more years. The haunting never fully returned while they lived there, but it was not over. Not really. It was only sleeping. Years passed, decades passed. The Pritchard family eventually moved out. The house sat empty for a long time. People were afraid to live there. Then in 2012, something changed. A film director named Pat Holden made a movie based on the case. The film was called When the Lights Went Out. Pat Holden had a personal connection to the story. Jean Pritchard was his aunt. As a child, he had visited the house. He had experienced some of the phenomena himself. The film brought new attention to 30 East Drive. A producer named Bill Bungay bought the house. He did not believe in ghosts. He thought it would be a fun novelty. He was wrong. The moment the film released, the activity started again, stronger than before, more violent than before. Overnight stays began to be offered. Paranormal investigation groups came from all over the world. They documented shadow figures, objects moving, voices, footsteps. Some visitors were pushed down the stairs. Others were scratched. Many fled the house in terror before the night was over. The Black Monk was awake again, and he was angry. Today, 30 East Drive operates as a paranormal tourism site. You can book an overnight stay if you are brave enough. Hundreds of people have done it. Many of them report experiences. Some capture evidence on camera. Others refuse to return. The house has been featured in countless documentaries and television shows. It has become one of the most famous haunted locations in the world. But here is what makes this case truly terrifying. The haunting never ended. Other famous cases has lasted weeks or months. The Enfield Poltergeist, the Amityville Horror. They all had endpoints. But the Black Monk of Pontefract has been active for nearly 60 years. 60 years of reports. 60 years of witnesses. 60 years of something that refuses to leave. Skeptics say it is mass hysteria. They say it is suggestion. They say people see what they expect to see. But how do you explain the physical attacks? The bruises? The dozens of credible witnesses, including police officers and journalists? How do you explain an 11-year-old girl being dragged upstairs by her hair in front of multiple adults? You cannot, at least not easily. Whether you believe in the Black Monk or not, something happened at 30 East Drive, something that traumatized a family, something that left scars, something that continues to this day. The house stands on Chesterfield Estate, quiet from the outside, but step inside, stay until dark, and you might understand why they call it the most violent poltergeist in Britain. The Black Monk of Pontefract is waiting, and he has all the time in the world.